Nobody ever looked at me twice. I was just the elevator guy in the tallest building downtown. 42 floors of glass and steel, filled with lawyers and executives who wore expensive suits and carried leather briefcases. They stepped into my elevators every morning without saying a word. Sometimes they talked on their phones like I wasn't even there. Other times they stared at the floor numbers lighting up one by one. My blue uniform had a patch that said Maintenance, and a name badge that read Marcus Chen. But nobody ever called me Marcus. They just called when something broke. A stuck door on floor 12. Broken buttons on floor 30. The emergency phone that stopped working. I fixed them all. I carried my toolbox from floor to floor, cleaning grease off my hands in bathroom sinks. This was my life. Simple. Quiet. Invisible. That's what everyone thought. They had no idea what I did after my shift ended every night. At 8 o'clock, when the building emptied out, I didn't go home right away. I went to the basement break room with my laptop and opened my online law classes. For 3 years, I'd been studying contract law, business regulations, and courtroom procedures. Nobody knew. Not my supervisor. Not the building security guards. Nobody. I bought textbooks from used bookstores and read them on my lunch breaks. I watched recorded lectures while eating sandwiches from the vending machine. My professors never saw my face in person, but they knew my work. I got good grades. Really good grades. I wasn't trying to become a fancy lawyer with an office on the top floor. I just wanted to understand how the world worked. How companies made decisions. How contracts trapped people. How justice was supposed to happen. Knowledge felt like power when you spent your days being invisible. So I kept studying, kept learning, kept hoping that someday it would matter. The building had been buzzing for weeks about CEO Elaine Porter's trial. She ran the biggest tech company in the city, and prosecutors said she'd stolen millions from investors through fake reports and hidden accounts. If she lost, she'd go to prison for 20 years. The trial was happening right here on floor 18 in the biggest conference room. They'd turned it into a temporary courtroom with cameras, microphones, and rows of chairs for witnesses. Security guards stood outside the doors. Reporters waited in the lobby downstairs. I fixed the elevator on floor 18 almost every day that month. The doors kept sticking because so many people used it. While I worked, I could hear voices from the conference room. Lawyers arguing. Witnesses testifying. Elaine's voice, strong and clear, defending herself. I didn't mean to eavesdrop. But sound traveled through these walls, and I was there every afternoon with my tools, listening to everything while people walked past like I didn't exist. It was a Tuesday morning when I got the call about floor 18 again. The elevator doors were making a grinding sound. I grabbed my toolbox and rode up, expecting another quick fix. But when the doors opened, I heard shouting. Loud, angry shouting coming from the conference room. This wasn't normal courtroom arguing. This was panic. I walked toward the sound, tools rattling in my box. The conference room doors were open. Inside, I saw Elaine Porter standing at a table, her face pale. A man in an expensive suit was packing his briefcase. The judge sat at the front, looking annoyed. Security guards stood frozen by the walls. "You can't do this," Elaine said. Her voice shook. The man with the briefcase didn't look up. "I already did. I'm withdrawing from your case, effective immediately." He snapped his briefcase shut. "Good luck finding someone else." Then he walked straight past me out the door. The room went silent. The judge cleared his throat. Everyone turned to look at him. He was older, with gray hair and reading glasses hanging on a chain around his neck. He looked tired. "Miss Porter," he said slowly, "without legal representation, this trial cannot proceed in your favor. You'll lose by default." Elaine gripped the edge of the table. "Your Honor, please. I just need time to find another lawyer." The judge checked his watch. It was a gold watch that caught the light from the windows. "You have 1 hour. If you don't have counsel when we reconvene, I'll rule against you immediately." 1 hour. 60 minutes to find a lawyer who knew this complicated case inside and out. The other lawyers in the room whispered to each other. Some smiled. They knew she was finished. Elaine sat down hard in her chair. Her hands covered her face. The executives behind her started making phone calls, but their voices sounded hopeless. I stood in the doorway with my toolbox, watching everything fall apart. Here's what nobody in that room understood. I'd been listening to this trial for 3 weeks. Every afternoon while fixing elevators, calibrating sensors, checking safety cables. The conference room walls weren't soundproof. I heard the prosecutors' arguments about falsified financial reports. I heard witnesses describe secret bank accounts and fake invoices. I heard Elaine's lawyer explain the defense strategy, How the real fraud was committed by her former business partner who disappeared to another country. I knew the timeline of events. I knew which witnesses were reliable and which ones were lying. I knew the contract terms, the accounting rules, the electronic signatures. I'd even recognized some legal mistakes Elaine's lawyer had made, errors I'd learned about in my online classes. This wasn't just gossip I'd overheard. This was a complete understanding of a complex case. And now Elaine had no lawyer. 57 minutes left. I stood there holding my toolbox, watching her world collapse. Then I made a decision that changed everything. I can help. My voice sounded too loud in the silent room. Every single person turned to stare at me. A young lawyer in the back actually laughed. You? The elevator guy? Another lawyer smirked. What are you going to do, fix the trial? But Elaine looked up. Her eyes met mine. For the first time since I'd worked in this building, someone really saw me. What did you say? She asked. I walked into the room. My work boots made squeaking sounds on the polished floor. My uniform had a grease stain on the sleeve. I probably smelled like machine oil. I said I can help. I'm a law student. I've been studying for 3 years. And I know this case. The judge frowned. Law student? You're not licensed to practice law in this court. No, sir, I said. But I can assist under supervision. My professor, David Kim, is a licensed attorney. I can call him right now. Silence filled the room again. The clock on the wall ticked. 53 minutes left. Elaine stared at me for a long moment. I could see her brain working, calculating risks, weighing impossible options. Behind her, one of the executives leaned forward. Elaine, this is insane. He fixes elevators. He's not a real lawyer. Another executive nodded. We should ask for a continuance. Delay the trial. But the prosecutor stood up, smiling. Your Honor already gave his ruling. 1 hour or she loses. Those are the terms. The judge nodded. That's correct. Elaine kept looking at me. You really know this case? Every detail, I said. I've heard all 3 weeks of testimony. I know the evidence, the witnesses, the timeline. I know where their arguments are weak. She glanced at the clock. 50 minutes. Then she stood up and walked over to me. Up close, I could see how exhausted she looked. Dark circles under her eyes. Worry lines on her forehead. What's your name? She asked. Marcus Chin. Call your professor, Marcus. She said it firmly, like a decision made. Let's do this. I pulled out my cell phone with shaking hands. Professor Kim had given me his number at the start of the semester, telling me to call anytime I had questions. I'd never actually used it. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. Come on, I whispered. On the 4th ring he picked up. Hello. Professor Kim, this is Marcus Chin from your online business law class. Marcus? Is everything okay? I explained the situation as fast as I could. CEO on trial. Lawyer quit. 1 hour to find representation. I could help if he'd supervise. The room watched me talk. The clock kept ticking. 45 minutes. You understand what you're asking? Professor Kim said. This is a real trial. Real consequences. Are you absolutely certain you can handle this? I thought about 3 years of studying. Hundreds of hours reading textbooks. Practice questions and mock trials. All those nights in the basement break room. Yes, sir, I said. I'm certain. He was quiet for a moment. Then, give me the address. I'll be there in 30 minutes. I hung up and looked at Elaine. He's coming. The executives cleared a space at the table for me. Someone brought me a chair. Another person handed me a bottle of water. Suddenly I wasn't invisible anymore. Elaine sat down next to me. Where do we start? I opened my toolbox and pulled out a notebook. I'd been taking notes during the trial, writing down important details during my breaks. My handwriting was messy, but the information was solid. The prosecution's case has 3 main parts, I said. The falsified financial reports, the hidden offshore accounts, and the witness testimony from your former employees. But there are problems with all 3. I flipped through my notes. The financial reports were created by your business partner, Richard Torres. He had sole access to the accounting system. The prosecution hasn't proven you even saw those reports before they went public. Elaine nodded. That's what my lawyer was arguing. Right. But he missed something important. I found the page I needed. Torres used his own electronic signature for those reports, not yours. That's documented in the system logs. Your lawyer never mentioned it. I kept going through my notes. The offshore accounts are registered to a shell company in Panama. The prosecution claims you own that company. But the paperwork shows it was created 3 months before you even met Torres. Someone else owned it first, then transferred it to the shell company after you started your partnership. Elaine's eyes widened. I never knew that. It's in the evidence files but buried under hundreds of pages. Your lawyer probably didn't catch it. I turned another page. And the witnesses, your former employees, they all say you approved the fraudulent activities. But their stories don't match the timeline. One says you approved fake invoices in March. Another says April. Another says June. They can't all be right. One of the executives leaned over. So they're lying? Or they're confused, I said. Either way, their testimony isn't reliable. We can prove that with simple questions about dates and documents. The clock showed 30 minutes left. Elaine looked at me with something like hope. You really figured all this out from fixing elevators? I listen more than people think. Professor David Kim walked into the conference room with 15 minutes to spare. He was younger than I expected, maybe 40, wearing casual clothes and carrying a worn briefcase. He looked at me, then at Elaine, then at the judge. Your Honor, I'm David Kim, licensed to practice law in this state. I'm here to supervise my student, Marcus Chin, who will be assisting in this case. The judge studied him. You understand the unusual circumstances? I do. And I'm confident Marcus is capable. The prosecutor stood up, annoyed. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We can't just allow any maintenance worker to. Mr. Chin is a law student under proper supervision, the judge interrupted. That's within the rules. Unless you have a legal objection? The prosecutor sat down. No, Your Honor. The judge looked at me. Mr. Chin, I'll allow this. But understand that you're representing someone's freedom and livelihood. This isn't a classroom exercise. My heart pounded. I understand, sir. Then let's proceed. Court is in session. The trial continued. The prosecutor called his first witness, a former accountant who'd worked with Elaine. He was nervous, sweating under the camera lights. The prosecutor asked him about the fake financial reports. Did Miss Porter know about the falsified numbers? Yes, the witness said. She approved everything. When it was my turn to ask questions, I stood up slowly. My legs felt weak. The whole room watched me. Professor Kim nodded encouragingly. Sir, I said to the witness, you testified that Miss Porter approved the false reports in March of last year. Is that correct? Yes. I picked up a document from the evidence pile. This is the system log from the accounting software. It shows that in March of last year, Miss Porter was in Seattle for a technology conference. She wasn't even in the office. The witness blinked. Maybe it was a different month. April then? Yes, probably April. I held up another document. In April, Miss Porter was on medical leave recovering from surgery. That's documented in her hospital records. The witness's face went red. Well, sometime around then. So you don't actually remember when she approved these reports? The witness stumbled over his answer. I'm sure she approved them at some point. But you just said March, then April, and now you're not sure at all. Which is it? The prosecutor objected. Your Honor, these questions are harassing the witness. The judge shook his head. Overruled. The witness's timeline is relevant. Continue, Mr. Chin. I pressed forward. Sir, these financial reports were filed electronically. Every action in the system is logged with a date, time, and user signature. Can you show me anywhere in these logs where Miss Porter's signature appears? The witness looked at the prosecutor for help. I don't have access to those logs right now. That's because they don't exist, I said. The only signature on these reports belongs to Richard Torres, Miss Porter's former business partner. Not her. Silence. The prosecutor shuffled his papers. The witness looked down. I must have been mistaken, he finally said. I sat down. My hands were still shaking, but I'd done it. One witness down. Professor Kim gave me a small smile. Elaine squeezed my arm. Keep going, she whispered. The next witness was a financial investigator who'd traced money to offshore accounts. The prosecutor asked him to explain how Miss Porter had hidden money in Panama. She created a shell company, the investigator said confidently. The money flowed from her business into this company, then disappeared into foreign banks. When I stood up to question him, I felt a little steadier. You said Miss Porter created this shell company. When was it created? The investigator checked his notes. December 2020. And when did Miss Porter first meet Richard Torres and start their business partnership? He checked again. March 2021. So the shell company existed 3 months before she even met Torres? Well, yes, but And who originally registered that company? I held up incorporation papers. According to these documents, it was registered by a man named Carlos Mendez. Do you know who that is? The investigator frowned. No. He's Richard Torres's cousin. The company was later transferred to Torres's control, then used for the fraud. But Miss Porter had nothing to do with creating it. The room buzzed with whispers. The prosecutor tried to recover. Your Honor, even if Miss Porter didn't create the company, she still benefited from the fraud. I turned to face him. Did she? Where's the evidence that any money reached her personal accounts? The prosecutor hesitated. The investigation is ongoing. After months of investigation, you still can't trace a single dollar to her? Isn't it more likely that Richard Torres, who created the shell company through his cousin, who controlled the accounting system, who signed all the false reports, was the one who actually committed this fraud? The judge leaned forward. Do you have evidence placing funds in Miss Porter's accounts? The prosecutor looked uncomfortable. Not directly, Your Honor. But her position as CO, being CO doesn't prove guilt, I said. It proves responsibility, but Mr. Torres was her equal partner with full access to everything. He could have done all of this without her knowledge. I pulled out more documents. In fact, here are emails between Torres and the shell company's bank. Miss Porter isn't copied on any of them. She never communicated with that bank at all. The prosecutor sat down heavily. His case was falling apart. The judge called for a short break. Everyone stood and stretched. Elaine pulled me aside. Marcus, you're doing amazing. I can't believe this. Professor Kim joined us. He's right. You found holes in their case that a professional might have missed. How did you catch all these details? I shrugged. I had time. While I was fixing elevators, I just listened and took notes. Nobody pays attention to the maintenance guy, so I heard everything. Elaine shook her head. You're much more than a maintenance guy. The prosecutor was on his phone, probably talking to his boss. The other lawyers looked worried. They'd expected an easy win. Now they were losing. When we returned, the judge spoke. I've reviewed the evidence presented today. Mr. Chin has raised substantial questions about the prosecution's case. The timeline doesn't match witness testimony. The electronic signatures don't support the claims. And there's no direct evidence connecting Miss Porter to the actual fraud. My heart raced. Was this really happening? I'm ready to make a ruling, the judge continued. The entire room held its breath. Elaine gripped my hand under the table. The judge looked at his notes, then at the prosecutor. The burden of proof in a criminal case is beyond reasonable doubt. The prosecution has failed to meet that burden. There are too many inconsistencies, too many unanswered questions, and a complete lack of direct evidence connecting Miss Porter to these crimes. He turned to Elaine. While you may have had some responsibility as CEO to prevent this fraud, that's a civil matter, not a criminal one. The evidence suggests your business partner, Richard Torres, was the primary actor in this scheme. The prosecutor started to object, but the judge raised his hand. I've heard enough. This case is dismissed. The room exploded. Elaine started crying. The executives behind us cheered. The prosecutor slammed his briefcase shut and stormed out. Professor Kim patted my shoulder. Well done, Marcus. Really well done. I couldn't speak. My throat felt tight. I'd actually done it. Saved someone from prison with just knowledge and attention to details everyone else had missed. Security cleared the room slowly. Reporters tried to rush in, but guards stopped them. Elaine stood and faced me. Marcus, I don't know how to thank you. You don't have to thank me, I said. I just told the truth about what I heard. But she shook her head. No. You saved my life. My company. Everything. She pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back. This is my personal number. Call me when you finish law school. I want to hire you. I looked at the card. The front said, Elaine Porter, CO, Porter Technologies. The back had her number in her own handwriting. I still have 2 more years of school, I said. That's fine. I'll wait. She smiled for the first time that day. A lawyer who fixes elevators and pays attention to details? That's exactly who I need. The executives came over to shake my hand. Even the judge stopped on his way out. Mr. Chin, you have a real talent. Keep studying. Then everyone left. Just me, my toolbox, and the empty conference room that used to be a courtroom. The next morning, I showed up for my shift at 7 o'clock. Put on my blue uniform. Clipped my name badge to my chest. Grabbed my toolbox from the maintenance closet. My supervisor, Ray, looked at me strangely. I heard about what you did yesterday. Yeah. I said. Yeah. The whole building's talking about it. The elevator guy who became a lawyer for a day. He laughed. That's crazy. I shrugged. I just helped out. Well, there's an elevator stuck on floor 23. Think you can fix it, or are you too fancy for that now? I smiled. I can fix it. I rode up to floor 23 with my tools. The elevator door was jammed halfway open. Someone had tried to force it and bent the track. Classic mistake. I pulled out my wrench and got to work. But this time, when people walked past, they looked at me differently. Some said hello. Others nodded. A few stopped to ask questions about the trial. One lawyer even asked for my card. I don't have cards, I told him. I'm still a student. Well, when you graduate, look me up. It was strange being visible after 3 years of being invisible. That night, I went back to my usual spot in the basement break room. Opened my laptop. Logged into my online class. But Professor Kim had sent an email to everyone. One of your classmates, Marcus Chin, just assisted in a real trial today and helped win a dismissal. I've attached his work as a case study for everyone to review. This is what practical application of your studies looks like. My phone started buzzing with messages from other students. People I'd never met face to face. They were congratulating me, asking questions, wanting to know how I'd done it. I read through the messages slowly. Some students were jealous. Others were inspired. Most were just curious. I typed back simple responses. I just paid attention. Used what we learned in class. Nothing special. But it was special. I knew that now. For 3 years I'd studied alone, thinking nobody cared. Thinking maybe I was wasting my time. Now I realized that all those nights mattered. All those textbooks. All those practice questions. Knowledge was never wasted. It was just waiting for the right moment. Over the next 2 weeks, my life looked the same but felt completely different. I still fixed elevators every day. Still wore my uniform. Still carried my toolbox. But now people saw me as more than just the maintenance guy. Security guards asked about my studies. Office workers held elevator doors for me. Executives stopped to chat when they saw me in the hallways. One morning, a lawyer named Rebecca stopped me on floor 30. Marcus, right? The guy from the Porter trial? That's me. I've been practicing law for 15 years, she said. And I watched you find details in that case that everyone else missed. How did you do it? I thought about it. I think it's because I'm used to being invisible. When nobody notices you, you notice everything else. The small details. The patterns. The things that don't match up. She nodded slowly. That's actually brilliant. Most lawyers are too busy being seen to really see. Maybe, I said. Or maybe I just had time to listen while fixing elevators. She smiled. Don't sell yourself short. You've got a gift. 2 weeks after the trial, I was fixing the elevator on floor 18 again. Same floor. Same conference room. But now it was back to normal, just a regular meeting space. My phone rang. Unknown number. Hello? Marcus? It's Elaine Porter. I almost dropped my wrench. Oh, hello, Miss Porter. Call me Elaine. Listen, I know you're still in school, but I wanted to check in. How are your studies going? Good, I said. Really good, actually. My professors heard about the trial. They're using it as a teaching example. That's wonderful. And you're still planning to finish your degree? Of course. 2 more years. Good. Because I meant what I said. When you graduate, I want to hire you as my corporate attorney. Full-time. Good salary. Benefits. Everything. I sat down on the floor next to my toolbox. Elaine, I'm just a law student. I don't even have my license yet. You will soon. And when you do, you'll be the kind of lawyer I need. Someone who pays attention. Someone who sees what others miss. Someone who knows how to fix things. I smiled at that. I do know how to fix things. That night in the break room, I opened my laptop as usual. But instead of just studying, I started thinking about the future. In 2 years, I'd graduate. Take the bar exam. Become a real lawyer. I'd have an office, a real paycheck, a career helping people like Elaine who needed someone to see the truth. But I'd also remember where I came from. The elevator guy who listened while nobody watched. The maintenance worker who studied law at night. The invisible person who learned to see what everyone else missed. My phone buzzed. A text from Professor Kim. Marcus, I've been thinking. You should consider a scholarship program I know about. Full funding for your last 2 years. You'd be perfect for it. Interested. I typed back. Very interested. Thank you. Things were changing fast. But some things would stay the same. I'd still study hard. Still pay attention to details. Still fix problems when I found them. That was who I was. Whether I wore a blue uniform or a business suit, I'd always be someone who fixed things. 6 months later, I'm still the elevator guy. Still wearing my uniform. Still carrying my toolbox through 42 floors. But now I'm also a law student with a scholarship. A future corporate attorney with a job waiting after graduation. A person who proved that being invisible doesn't mean being powerless. This morning, I fixed a broken elevator on floor 35. This afternoon, I wrote a paper on corporate fraud law. Tonight, I'll study for my business ethics exam. And in 2 years, I'll start my real career. But I'll never forget these elevator days. The quiet moments listening to trials through walls. The lonely nights studying in basement break rooms. The years of being unseen while learning to see everything. Yesterday, a new maintenance worker started. Young kid, maybe 20, looking nervous in his blue uniform. I showed him how to reset a jammed door. "Thanks," he said. "No problem," I replied. "And hey, if you ever want to study something while you work here, do it. You never know when it might matter." He looked confused. "Study what?" I smiled. "Whatever you want. Just don't let anyone tell you that who you are today is all you'll ever be." Then I picked up my toolbox and headed to the next floor. Still fixing elevators. And maybe, in my own way, still fixing the world.